we were in that stage for a very long time, and in that stage you realize that your assumptions were wrong about certain things. The challenge was just changing the mindset from the way I worked to the way I had to start to work, which was basically doing everything. I'm an ex-banker, so I kind of knew a little bit about payments. Fimble was a safe-ish parole for us.
Welcome everyone, my name is Agata and here we are in Startup Stories. Today my guest is Tomasz Krzewina, co-founder of Fimble Startup. So how are you today?
I'm very good, Agata. Hi, nice to be here.
Thank you very much for being here, for having time for our startup, for our podcast, sorry. And I think that we can start with the first question. I think that this is the most important for our listeners. So what does the Fimble startup do?
Right, well, it does many things, but we are mainly a SaaS platform for chasing regular payments. And we do a lot of peripheral things around that, but that very much is our core business. So essentially, we automate cumbersome processes related to payments. We've evolved massively throughout the last year of building the product. We started off in real estate space. We wanted to chase rent. We thought that was going to be our area of focus. Since then, we have also branched out to chasing invoices in general. So small businesses mainly can use us to chase the invoices that they've issued. So in very practical terms, Fimble, you use Fimble together with your accounting software or with your CRM. Someone like an estate agent could use it, or anyone, a builder could use it. They issue invoices or demands for rent. And Fimble automatically chases that rent for them, and it's quite smart in terms of what it says, when it says it, and what medium of communication it uses, whether it's email or text messages, and it processes the payments as well.
Okay, so that's great, but what kind of safeguards have you put in place to improve the quality and collection of wages? Because I think that financial security is extremely important for tenants or landlords who use that kind of application.
Totally, yeah. So that's why I say we do a lot of other things. So the exciting stuff is the AI algorithm that generates the messages, and the natural language processing that we use in order to make it sound like a real human being is writing those messages. But we also do a lot of boring stuff, which is to do with finance and processing payments. We open virtual bank accounts. There's a hell of a lot of compliance in what we do in relation to payments. We need to keep them secure. We mainly outsource this to partners. So we work with a brilliant company called Yapily that do all the open banking for us. But yes, we do a lot of boring stuff that I think your listeners won't be that interested in. But we have to keep it secure, and we have to give our customers confidence that it's all going to work fine.
Yes, I think that's the most important thing in that case of startup or a company who is connected with finance, that you have to assure your customer that everything is safe and well working. So how does your company differentiate itself from competition on the market? Do you have any competitor on the market, or your company is the first of that kind?
There are companies that do very similar things, but we are the first ones who do it the way we do it, or the way we intend to do it. It's funny that when you start a business, everyone I speak to who started their own business, they always thought they're going to be the first ones to do this, and the idea is amazing, and they cannot believe how no one's ever done this before. And then you start building the product, and you find out more and more about other startups that have done something very, very similar. Or in our case, actually large companies that are doing similar things. So we have a number of competitors. We have a few less in the real estate space. That's a little bit. Our functionality is a lot more complex than most of our competitors. So most of our competitors have our CRM systems, and they have some sort of functionality for chasing rent. It usually is limited to just sending a reminder 2 days before the rent is due. The reminder is always worded in the same fashion: please pay your rent on time. Here's a link. We're putting a little bit more science to it, and I think that's why we also ventured out into chasing invoices as well, where the conversation about paying them is a little bit more sophisticated. You have to be a bit more personal with the clients, right? Like if me and you, when we receive an email and it just says your rent is due, pay, you kind of know that's an automated message. It's very easy to ignore it. When there is a message that looks like it's been written by a human being, and you feel like you're having a conversation, you're much more likely to engage with that. And actually, for us, but most importantly, you're much more likely to pay that invoice or that rent.
Yes, of course. I think that's the clue and the case is why many companies are also don't work with IA like ChatGPT or chatbots, that they think the company can lose clients because of that, because they are not personal and emotional engaged to that. So do you think about using IA technology, or do you don't want to do that because of that emotional, not connection with clients?
I mean, that's exactly what we're doing, really. So, yeah, I mean, I encourage everyone who hasn't tried Bard of Google or ChatGPT. Yes, that was the first one, and they do have a conversation with those algos. That's exactly what we're doing. We think it was the inspiration for this idea as well. We thought about what areas of business will those conversational AIs change and revolutionize quickest. We didn't think about blogs. Blogs are completely turned upside down now. So content creation has been changed since introduction of Chat GPT. Everyone writes their blogs with that. We thought about what are the kind of difficult conversations that people are having online that can be automated. And we thought about payments. Nobody likes to talk about payments. Nobody likes chasing payments. If an algorithm can do that instead of a human being, that's where we generate value.
Okay, so that's really interesting, and I hope that everything goes well, because when we were mailing, you told me that your company is entering the British market. So what does the process of entering company or launching product to the market look like? Like, if you have to say this in the most important steps, how the entering to the market look like?
Oh, I don't know about 5 steps. It's usually one massive step. But
Okay.
in our case, it was a little bit easier. So we because both co-founders are in the UK, so it's very it's actually easy. It was probably easier for us to do it in the UK than do it in Poland. But what we in a normal life cycle of a startup, you kind of start ideation and thinking about what you're going to do. Then at some point you settle on something and you're going to start building it. And we were in that stage for a very long time. And in that stage, you realize that your assumptions were wrong about certain things, and you have to change direction a little bit, and you have to add something, and you have to deduct something. We very quickly realized that there is a lot more demand for what we're doing in the UK. First of all, we realized there's a lot more demand for what we're doing in English, because a lot of the conversational algorithms, in order for us to achieve scale, we should do this in English, not in Polish. Us being in the UK helped. The kind of depth of the market here helps. The challenges are, the challenges are cultural, right? So we have a Polish team of developers. Everything's developed in Lublin, but we have a marketing, business development people now in the UK. It's difficult sometimes to convey the messages. I think it's nice that we're Polish and we live in the UK. I think most of our jobs in those conversations are being translated, not of the language, but of actually concepts, right? So the marketing people say, in the UK, this and this is very important. Self-employed people are very important. The Polish developers, I can see them looking with their eyes open. They don't know what's being talked about, and everything just takes a lot more time. But in the end, for us, this model hopefully will work, or is about to work very well. Poland is still a relatively low cost location for IT development, and the depth of the UK market for this kind of services. We're hoping that this is going to be a good mix.
Okay, so the big challenges were with the different approaches between Polish market and British market. And is it more difficult to launch product in England besides that differences between our country? Or do you think that in Poland you also have the same or similar problem launching that product?
Completely different. It's completely different in terms of challenge, the types of challenges. So in Poland, it's just difficult to find a market for your services, right? In order to scale in a relatively small economy, you have to have something really mainstream, right? So when we did our modeling, it very quickly became apparent that if we only do the real estate business, we would really have to service kind of like 10% of the lettings market in Poland in order to be very successful. At the same time, if we serviced 0.5% of the UK real estate market, we would be even more successful. So it's just easier to achieve scale. What the big prize of doing it in our case in the UK is compliance and regulation, the complexity and maturity of the market. So doing what we're doing in Poland would have been possible and relatively easy from a legal standpoint. In the UK, it's a massively overregulated country. there's a rule and there's a regulation about everything, things that I would never imagine. But people do spend time when you start dealing, as you said, when you start dealing with payments, it becomes very, very complex. We are dealing with pseudo banks, so electronic money institutions here. Tenants have all sorts of safeguards, and like in Poland, you just take a deposit, right? So and make sure that nobody breaks your furniture and belongings, and if they do, you take that deposit. In the UK, there's a whole world. There's governmental institutions that take those deposits from you, keep them safe. There's insurance linked to those deposits. Everything just gets very, very complicated. But hopefully, it's going to be worth it for us.
Okay, but if you have the opportunity to do that startup, do that project in Poland because it has all quality you need, if you still would like to develop your startup in other company or in other country, or then you just say, okay, let's do this in Poland if the all needed things will be okay in Poland.
I don't know. I never really thought about it because it worked out the way it worked out for us, and that's the direction we took, and we kind of committed to it. I think what's good is you said we're going to talk about scale a little bit, right? I think that was one of my big lessons of running a startup is it's very easy to come up with amazing ideas on small scale. There's loads and loads and loads of startups who have come up with this incredible tool for a very small group of people. And I know, really, by now I know hundreds of them. And they, unfortunately, they do tend to fail. From the very beginning, I encourage everyone to think about scale, right? So after you've got your 5 paying customers and you're making a little bit of revenue and you're going to start having conversations with external investors, the first question is always, where is the scale? And that comes either from servicing a huge proportion of the market that you're in or scaling out abroad. That's why for us, we kind of planned it this way. So we wanted to start in an English-speaking country to make sure that the algo is trained on English, and from there we have a ability to expand to the US, to North America if we so choose, or our infrastructure, our kind of banking and payments processing infrastructure is very much geared up to process euro payments as well. So if we choose to go into that in that direction, we can do that as well. But it gives us options.
Okay, yeah. So when we are talking about scaling the company, so you entering the market in the UK, in the British. So what are the plans for this year? What would you do with your company? How do you want to scale this? How want to promote your product, your company? What is your plan for scaling the company?
So we've got we now have the product ready, and we are working very, very hard on a marketing campaign, on a very kind of accurate marketing campaign. We have our first customers, but we kind of did it on a hash because we're still in an MVP. We think we're still in an MVP stage, where we are testing and actually proving to ourselves that it works and proving to other people that it works. For us, the big step is, okay, from now, we have a little bit of money on marketing. We we are quite confident that the product works. Now we need to prove that marketing of it also works. That if we spend money to generate traffic, the traffic comes. And then when you talk about, and then obviously the kind of natural next step for us is to raise some money, but we want to go and raise that money with the knowledge of, yes, our product works, people are using it. Not only that, we've done a marketing campaign on a smaller scale. If you scale it, if you do that campaign times x20 or x30, we will be able to show return on that investment. So that's our plan, hopefully, for this year.
Okay, so my finger crossed for your company will develop and you accomplish all your goals. But I also knew that you have a second startup, which is in the base phase, HashedRags. And what is the idea behind that company?
That's a very, very early stage startup. So
okay.
So maybe let me tell you about our thinking. So Fimble is kind of functional almost. Or we are relatively confident that it's going to work. I say 80% chance, and my co-founder he's a pessimist. He'll say 40 or less. But I'm the optimist. So we got here, and it's just a question now for us, I think, how big this business is going to be. It's either going to scale quickly and we're going to get financing, and I think then we will commit really kind of fully to developing it. But we thought we like this stage of developing new ideas. We really enjoyed getting there, shaping the ideas, and especially building the product. So we couldn't resist the temptation of coming up with something new and seeing how that goes. It's also a bit of a hedge for us in terms of business. So I'm doing this with the same co-founder and another person who's really an expert in that field. And the startup has to do with fashion, and I will explain that in a second. But our thinking was, I'm an ex-banker, so I kind of knew a little bit about payments. Fimble was a safe-ish call for us. So we've done that, and we thought, you know what this kind of, it works. Like we work well together. We know how to do it now. Shall we start something really, really revolutionary, right? Something that really can change the way people use technology. So HashedRags is a technology product for fashion products, or fashion producers, and it essentially turns each individual item, fashion items, a handbag, a coat, ships, anything, into an NFT. So you put an NFC chip into one of those products, or the producer does, and it creates a digital twin on the platform, and it tracks everything to do with that, anything to do with that product. And we kind of hope that that's the way people will be in the future buying fashion, right? They'll be much more interested in what that product is made out of, where it came from, how far did it travel, who made it, who were the previous owners. It opens up huge amounts of sort of new fashion business models, right? You can link digital content to an item, so you can buy a dress, and the producer can link a video from the fashion show where that dress was displayed, and we just think that the way people will purchase fashion in the future will be a lot more focused on on content and digital content rather than just here's a coat to keep me warm.
Oh, that's very interesting, and I think that can be a big step in fashion industry because we are digitalized. So I think that this can be a big step. So that's really interesting. And how you find inspiration to start all that idea? How you find it? Do you, I don't know, go for a walk and you see people and you think about what they're doing, or you just wake up someday and think, yes, I have a great idea, let's talk about it, let's do this, let's start company with that? How does it look like in your case?
I actually don't believe anyone walks around and just comes out with a great idea. I don't think that's possible. And whoever says they do, I do not believe them. Um, the way I think about it is, I think you just have to commit to thinking about it in the first place, right? Like don't think that it will come, because it never comes, and things that come might seem like amazing ideas to you. And from my experience, when you start talking to people about those ideas, especially people who know a little bit about the sector, they tell you why something wouldn't work, and it makes perfect sense. So to me, it has been a process of decide that you're going to think about stuff, uh, think about business, think about startup ideas, do it with someone else. It helps me massively. So agree on a brainstorming session. That's what we've done with my co-founder. We locked ourselves in a room for half a day, and I think another half a day the day after. We just said, come prepared, think of a few things, and we're gonna be discussing what we think we can do. Think about the framework in which you want to think of a realistic idea, something that you can really do. It's like, for us, it was establishing that it's not going to be our first startup. We both worked in corporate organizations before. For us, we knew we wanted to do something that we know at least a little bit about, something about, right? So for us, it was payments. My co-founder is an energy trader, so we had some ideas around power and energy, and we talked about them for ages and ages and ages. And actually, the things that we thought about in the first place were just a kind of a springboard for us to come up with more different ideas. And the fashion thing is it's really random for us because neither of us is really into fashion. But the angle we took there was we're two guys who really don't care that much about the fashion market as it currently is, and we thought, but we really like technology. We spend most of our days in front of our computers doing something to do with technology. The challenge that we set ourselves was, how can we make fashion interesting for us with technology? And the big assumption here is obviously that there is a lot more people like us. It might not necessarily be true, but that's how we came up with that, right? So we thought about, okay, what is it? What are the technology solutions that would make fashion something interesting for me and for my co-founder?
That's great. And you said before that you're optimistic. And when I talked with my previous guest, also founder or co-founder of startup, they all said that they are optimistic. Do you think that it's quality for co-founder of startup? Is that something what help you, or it's something like curse who doesn't really help you and sometimes make that you feel about the impossible things?
It's a very fine balance, I would say. So I think you have to be optimistic in order to start your own business, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a very innovative one. For anyone to go on their own, it's a risk, and you have to, in order to take those risks, I think you have to believe that the odds are in your favor. It can be it can be a curse because when we talk about timelines, we thought we were going to build a product in 6 months' time, and a year within the project, we were still building a product. So obviously that doesn't help, right? Because you have a conversation with investors, with partners, and they want a realistic timeline. So I think you really have to balance your mindset in terms of doing things in the startup world. It's a bit of a cliche, this kind of image of a founder who no matter what, he thinks that the startup will succeed and it will be great and it will take 3 months time, and in 6 months time there's going to be Series A. It's not necessarily helpful. So I think it takes a while for me. It took a while for me to find that balance. It's most likely still completely off. But in general, we have to be optimistic.
Okay, but when you mentioned balance, like you running 2 startups, so the balance between work and your private life must be really important, because one startup is require big work, and not mention 2. So how do you take care of that work-life balance?
It's actually quite straightforward for me, because I can probably contrast it, how my work life balance looks like in now versus what my previous life looked like, which was a corporate reality, and I balance it well because to me work and life kind of merge together, and it's kind of fine. That's what I mean. A lot of my time in my previous life was very regimented, right? Like it was the 9 o'clock, you go to work on a train, wear a suit, and come back, and that's when you kind of log out. And I used to reserve time in my calendar for a gym and time with my wife, and etc. It was a very regimented approach, which is fine, and I know that a lot of people feel comfortable, and I was comfortable with that, but you really had to find your sweet spot there, right? So I had to make sure that it's in my calendar what I'm doing at what time, and I realized that it just comes from the fact that I don't really like working that much, so I really had to set aside time for being productive, and then having my private hobbies and etc. There's a clear separation. Now I do for work. I do something that I really want to do, so I never really stop doing it, and I think that's okay. A lot of my time now is spent on either talking to people or just thinking about what we're going to do next. And I am preoccupied. It takes a huge amount of time from the day, but I enjoy it. So I kind of don't feel like I need to balance it that much as I used to. Yeah, and I honestly, I've never realized. I always thought that that's kind of the way I work and the way I manage my work-life balance. I thought that kind of everyone does it in a similar way, but people do it very differently. I think COVID helped a lot of people just to discover what they really like doing, how they like working. Working from home became an option. I work from home almost all the time. A lot of people that we work with have completely different preferences, schedules. I think the most important thing that I've learned from doing this is actually to accommodate everyone's models. Everyone has their preferences, and most of them work. They've established what works for them, and if they in order for them to be productive, let them work their own rhythm.
Okay, so that's great. And if you had the possibility chance to turn back in time, would you like to start your company, your startup earlier, or you think that the moment you find out what you want to do with your company, with your startup, was the right time?
Well, it's really hard. I would love to do it earlier, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I would be successful because a lot of the challenges that we've overcame running the startup were because we had a little bit of experience in a different life and different roles. I'm not sure if I will be able to deal with some of the issues with compliance around payments if I haven't spent 4 years working at the bank. Maybe not, right? Maybe that will be the nail in the coffin of Fimble. I honestly do encourage everyone who is thinking about this to do it. Be brave, be positive. Whether to do it as early as possible, I don't know. For me, money was always a big concern, right? Like it's nice to have a salary every month. I did at some point realize, and it was actually lockdown, right? It was COVID, that maybe I don't need just as much, and just make your calculation, see how much you can survive without a stable income, and if that's enough, do it. Right? It's a fantastic life experience. It's a fantastic professional experience. Would I do it earlier? I wasn't ready, but I'm sure other people are.
Okay, so running a startup is challenging, and we cannot say no to that. And what was the biggest challenge for you personally in running startup?
The huge challenge was just changing the mindset from the way I worked to the way I had to start to work, which was basically doing everything. So I was used to stuff just getting done, right? When you have an army of people, you work alongside an army of people, the same goal. That was my personal challenge. A lot of the time, I had to become a lawyer, and a developer, an engineer, a marketeer, and God knows what else. We took the view of doing as many things as much as we can on our own, not only to save money and budget, but also just to learn things like even things like accounting. A massive challenge for me. When you start running a business and you have to do accounts, you have to start paying taxes and rules around VAT. All of this, in each area has its challenges. That was by far the biggest thing for me, right? I mean, a lot of people don't like. Some people don't like it. I know guys who, I know people who don't like that aspect, right? Because all of a sudden, from a very large projects in big corporations. You're dealing with kind of a little bit boring tasks. Like you're dealing with creating documents, accounting, doing a tiny little marketing campaign on Google, right? You're looking at YouTube videos on how to do SEO, and it doesn't feel like you're doing something big and grand. But I really liked it, right? It feels like it's a massive stretch. All of a sudden, you really have to do all these things, and the big picture is you become good at bringing them together, and you start realizing how it all links up, how my marketing budget links up to my accounting, how it links up then to my valuation, and how it then links up to my development budget and what the product is going to look like. So that to me was my biggest personal challenge.
Okay, and if the cultural and language barrier between Poland and UK was the challenge for you, or you accommodate in that culture, in that region very easily?
It was okay. Like it wasn't the biggest thing, right? It wasn't the it wasn't a showstopper by any way. I guess that's another thing. When you start building a product and you start kind of spending money on something, on technology especially, you very quickly realize that nothing goes smoothly, right? And that was big. It was a big surprise for me. There was always a fire. There was always something. For the last year, there's always something that can potentially ruin the business completely, right? Like the law changed, or our IT developers got ill, or our negotiations with our banking partner fell apart, or we couldn't afford something. There's always something on my to-do list. Number one is always something can completely ruin the business. So when you have that on your to-do list, really dealing with the kind of communication cultural challenges falls really far down. It's actually just fine.
Okay, so you focus more on your company and your company's problem. That's on your accommodation, and that thanks to this make easy. Okay, so that's not a bad solution to accommodate in other country to feel like home there. And what the most rewarding thing about being a co-founder in a startup?
It's to me, it was the moment of actually kind of using the platform, right? So but it has to do with the process, or the stage at which we're in, right? So we've just spent so much time talking about details of what the platform will look like and what it will do, and we just had the endless conversations and endless hours spent on designing the UX, UI, the functionality, what's the database going to look like, how we're going to structure it. And then at some point, I remember distinctly that point where we're doing testing, and this usually tends to be a slow process when you test, and it starts to kind of make sense, and then you test again, and then you do user testing, and all of a sudden it's okay. But there was a round of testing that we've done, and I opened it, and I just thought to myself, okay, this is actually working, right? This is actually quite pleasant to use. Unbelievable that 8 months of our non-stop time talking about every single button and every single scroller and every single kebab menu button on that page where it's supposed to be. It came together. So for me, it's an incredible feeling, right? It's you only experience this. You don't often experience this with technology, right? It's not like you're a fashion designer and you made a dress and it looks fantastic, right? When you hang out. I think when it comes to technology, that was my wow moment.
Okay, but you rather celebrate the wow moment, so think big, or you rather enjoy every little small success?
Okay, again, find the balance, right? Like I also really like working with people. I mean, we're very lucky to have a fantastic team, right? So our developers are great characters. Like we're having such good time. You know, it's a very unique relationship when you've been working with someone on almost on a daily basis. And they have their quirks. Developers tend to be quite funny characters. Ours are as well. But I absolutely love working with them. Love dealing with them. We had a good time. Our marketing people are also really quirky, and I've learned so much from them. I went into this with a completely wrong attitude of I started dictating what I think marketing should look like, and it seemed very easy to me. And they told me off very quickly, and we found a fantastic middle ground and compromise. I think they just learned to manage my arrogance and my marketing ego. So those are the things I enjoy on daily basis. It's really great. It's working with people who are committed, who are passionate about what they're doing. They're coming out with ideas that I just would have never thought of, and they're great. But as I said, it's a balance, right? You also need those big you need those big aha moments, right? For us again, a first client, someone actually pays money for what you've done. Huge rewarding moment, but I think you have to find joy in both, right?
Okay, so this balance, what you're saying, that this is something you're taught from business, from your company, or you always have like the feeling that the balance is the most important?
I don't know what you mean, a work-life balance or something else. What do you mean?
Balance in life, like you said, that you have to balance happiness, you have to balance happy with everything, like the balance in life, in business.
I didn't realize this for a long time. I think I also had an aha moment, right? So when you work for someone, right? You work for a firm. For me, it took me years and years actually to realize that as I progressed, it was fantastic to be learning when I was young, learning new things and interacting with really clever people. And then I started kind of climbing a career ladder, and slowly realizing that when as you progress, actually the reward of that career progression is more, in corporate, they got like more responsibility or more more people under you, and you're responsible for more things. But the element that I found most rewarding is actually being more independent, right? So for me, it was always about, I'd love to run this big project, but I'd like to be solely responsible. I like the independence. I don't want to share that with 3 other people. And as I started realizing this, okay, but if I really like being independent within the workplace, and I like creating things of my own, I like creating products, then a bank or an insurance company is probably not a great place for me. And that's how I decided to run my own business, and it's delivered everything I ever hoped for. It's, you have the ultimate responsibility. You cannot hide behind someone else. You cannot hide behind a brand. I'm not here to represent XYZ company. I'm here to represent myself and Fimble. So yeah, that was my journey. That was my process. But I'm sure everyone has their own.
Yes, I think that when I talk with other people, everyone tells something similar, something different, that there are some commons in all your saying, but yeah, it's very individual. Do you have any inspiration or someone you admire from the business world? Who do you think, like, when you see them, you see the company, you think, oh, I want to do this, I want to be like them, I want to have that strategy?
I honestly, I really don't. I really, really don't. It's I think it's a little bit. I think it would be a little bit arrogant of me to look up to some of the business leaders that are famous enough to be known to your audience. So no, like, we're nowhere near achievements of Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk. I have my own. I kind of have my own ambitions. I've got my own kind of goals that they're not necessarily to make huge amounts of money. They are centered around balance and independence, and working with people that I want to work with, and spending the day the way I want to spend my day. That's my kind of startup journey. And you won't necessarily hear about those stories in media. Those guys don't tend to get famous because they not necessarily want to get famous.
Yes, exactly. So that was my last question for you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. And in the end, maybe that wasn't the least, but now, last but not least, I have the question for you. So what is your advice to all the listeners who dream about business, about starting their own company? What would you say them?
Do it. Honestly, do it. I wish someone told this to me before. I had so many concerns. They were justified, but it's been an amazing experience. It's worth it. It's worth it from a life perspective. It's worth it from a business perspective. If it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world these days. It's a fantastic thing on your CV as well. I've run this in this business for X amount of years. It didn't work. Any employer after that will look at this fondly now. So there are no excuses. Money's cheap now. Financing's available, but a little bit more expensive now than maybe 2 years ago. But it's still a great time to do this. So I would say it's as simple as that. Do it.
Thank you very much one more time. Tomasz Krzewina, co-founder of Fimble, was here with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Agatha. Thank you.